Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a really special unboxing for you from SurgeX. It's the PF-420 Power Conditioner and Surge Eliminator. We're gonna show you the unboxing, the product, what it does, how to install it, and how we're gonna use it in the Evergreen home theater. Let's get into the unboxing. Here we have our 38-pound MEMA rated enclosure. This is rated to be used next to subpanels and ceiling plenums, service entrances, and anywhere where you need to put whole room surge protection. This is a 4-circuit by 20 amp panel, which means it's capable of handling up to 20 amps per circuit in total for 80 amps of power. You have a couple lights on the front. These are your self-test lights to make sure that everything is running for optimal performance. Moving downward, you can see we have all of our holes so we can bring in all of our power cables. This unit provides whole room power conditioning and surge elimination, which is really important when it comes to taking out any noise that's in your home's wiring for any of your audio systems or video components. That's why we're putting it here in the Evergreen Theater. It is the first layer of defense against our surge elimination and power conditioning for all of our amplifiers, video processors, subwoofers, and even our projector. It'll all be protected by this as our first line of defense. Let's get into it without going to the hospital. I know that plastic unwrapping must be really satisfying. Alrighty, now we can see it without its plastic covering. Let's move inside. There we go. You can see we have our status lights up here, and then each of these is where our line in comes in and our line out goes out. The way that this actually gets wired into your system is we bring in 4 dedicated 20 amp circuits. That means we're running 12-2 wire from your breaker panel into this unit. After that, we're sending out our 4 dedicated circuits again out to the outlets inside the room, which means in this theater, we're putting one in for the projector, we're putting a circuit in for our subwoofers, and we're putting 2 circuits in for our rack. One for video processing, networking hardware, the kaleidoscope, and all the little bits, and then the other circuit is going towards our amplifiers, which means our amplifiers will have a conditioned and eliminated circuit with no noise, which means we get perfect tolerance when it comes to our speakers. The biggest thing with a home theater is making sure that there is no noise that's coming in through the amplifier. So this is a really important piece of kit to make sure that we eliminate that. Now, as I mentioned before, this is the first layer of defense. We're using 2 other SurgeX power conditioners in front of this so that we can make sure that we have 100% conditioning and surge elimination. It's the most important thing is to eliminate surges at their source, especially with conditioning and noise. As you can see here, we have all of our terminal blocks. Our 12-2 Romex will go in, our 12-2 Romex will go out. This will basically just live on the wall. It will not need to be user serviceable, but what's neat about elimination is it just takes the surge in and dissipates. Instead of surge protectors that take the surge and blow up afterwards, this is a reusable source of surge elimination. It's a very heavy duty appliance. I think one goes in, yeah, lines go in. Yeah, so down here your line source comes in, so this is going to be coming from your electrical panel. You have your load side, neutral, ground, and isolated ground, which is nice. They give you 2 solutions for grounding depending on what your system needs or requires. So 4 in, 4 out. They also make a 15 amp version of this, which I think is another great unit, but for us we went the full 20 amp line, so we can make sure that we have sufficient power for all of our devices, as well as all of our subwoofers and amplifiers. So tune in now to the installation of the product, how we're gonna mount it, where we're gonna put it, and actually how we're gonna wire it into the panel that's a dedicated sub-panel for this space. All right. So now we're actually starting the installation of the SurgeX PF-420. So as you can see, we put up a piece of plywood here. We painted it nice battleship gray so that everything blends in nicely. And you can see that we have our sub panel that we brought up here. And even on the ground, we have our wire that's gonna feed this panel. So our thoughts for this panel is we're actually gonna mount it right next to our sub panel. We're gonna actually use a piece of electrician's trough underneath here. That's gonna be where all of our wires come in. Then they're gonna branch up into this unit here through our 2 bottom holes. And then we'll start to put them inside of this panel itself. Once we have the wires inside of here, we'll actually run our individual conductors out back into this panel, and then we'll start to power it from our 20 amp circuit breakers that are in there. So stay tuned, we'll get all this mounted, our trough in, and we'll show you the pulling process. Check back to the time lapse. actually just wiring up this panel here. You can see so far, not really cleanly, but we have our loads coming in and we have our lines going out. So we're separating our phases here, as you can see in the panel. So we have black, red, so that means we're touching different phases of the panel itself. So now we know that we have our subwoofers on one, our outlets on the other, so we're just separating everything. That'll make it super easy to wire manage. It'd be nice if the panel was a little bit bigger so that you could have a little bit of raceway on the sides, but we kind of had to interweave our wires up. And for this, we're actually using we're coming into our trough here with our Romex, and that's coming up through our 3/4 inch nipples here. And then when it comes up through our 3/4 inch nipple, then we're actually tying in, and then you can see over here on our other side. So this is our load side. This is our line side. So we're using XHHW on this side, and we're using our Romex on this side. There are isolated grounds in this panel, but after very extensive research with the electricians, it was found that we don't need to use isolated grounds for our equipment. And isolated grounds used to be a thing in the early 80s when computers were becoming a really big thing. They had isolated outlets that were grounded to building steel, and it would cause less interruptions with computer systems back then. Today, it's not really a big deal because they don't actually sell isolated outlets anymore, to my knowledge, nor to their knowledge. So we're just going to use our regular grounds here. We're going to daisy chain grounding throughout these four, since ground is ground, and they technically be going all back to the same place in the panel regardless. So that's what we're going to do here. If there was one thing that I would actually like to see with this product is better instructions. And really, after looking through all of the instructions and things that they give you, which the instruction manual is only 2 pages, I feel like it just doesn't give you enough, unfortunately. And especially when you have qualified electricians and they know what they're doing when it comes to the electrical standpoint, but this is a very new piece of hardware that not a lot of them have actually seen. I would say if we can make them clearer and just explain a little bit more of the science, even include a wiring diagram so we know how everything is actually moving, because that was one thing that we were unable to find with this unit. Alrighty, so we actually just got the PF-420 installed, and we're going to give you a quick little walkthrough of what we did and how we actually did it. So if we open up the inside here, you can see that we used actually a 3/4 chase nipple here. Came into the box. This is our load side. Our Romex comes in here. What we actually did here was we separated on different phases. So we have phase 1, phase 2 corresponding to our electrical panel that's next to this. So we have our 2 outlets, and then we have our subwoofer and our projection outlet as well. So they're separated into here. You can see our loads all go into here. That's our Romex. And then we used XHHW here, and we came into our line side, which you can see we separated phases, red and black. Then we daisy changed our ground from ground to ground to ground. This panel does have isolated grounds like I mentioned before, but we actually didn't need to use them because to do a true isolated ground, there's a lot more work that's involved with it. And since none of our equipment actually needs an isolated ground, there was no reason to go through and actually install that. So you can see here, we have our other modules here. When these lights are on, that means we are protected. You can see here that they are a self-test LED here that will illuminate in green. And once this panel is closed up, you should never need to get to it. This panel is able to take 1,000 surges before it will need to be replaced. So that's a really big benefit of actually installing a branch circuit power eliminator and conditioner. You can see down here in our trough, this is where all of our Romex wires actually came into. They go up into here, and then you can see our XHHW runs in this trough from our electrical panel over here. This electrical panel is just a dedicated sub panel for our theater room here. So that means our lighting dimmers will go in here. Some of our other outlets and different things will go in here for our in-floor outlets, our other lighting, and this will just be a panel that's designated for this theater environment. So like I mentioned, we ran all 12 gauge wire. We ran 12 gauge to the projector, 12 gauge to both of these here, separated the phases among the panel and even in here as well. And then we have our subwoofer lines as well. So that's our 4 circuits that are going to be coming out of here. What I also did to future-proof was I ran a 10 gauge Romex from the projector back down to the trough here, so that if we did ever want to upsize and go to a 240 volt base projector, it was already in the wall, and all we'd have to do is get another power conditioner and surge eliminator. We can mount it right over here and then power it right off of this panel. So there's a lot of future-proofing built inside this theater so that as technology changes, we're able to upgrade with it. And we did the best speakers that we could have in our theater here, and we can always upgrade projection as time goes on, since video changes a lot faster than audio does. And then once we move further here, you'll see that we're actually running 2 cables out of the wall. That'll power the rack, and we'll be going from there. But so far, this was a great install. Definitely a couple hoops that we needed to jump through. It'd be nice if there was a schematic that was included with it so that the electricians could see it and we could see how it's actually actually wired on the interior of the unit. But other than that, it was pretty self-explanatory. The wiring in here, we all understood it after a while, and it made it easy to put in. This unit is 38 pounds, so we mounted it to this sheet of plywood here with actual toggle bolts behind it. So it is nice and secure on here, and it also is supported off of this as well, so it's sitting on something sturdy. Everything's tied together really nicely. So this was a great thing. I'm really excited to use it, and we will be doing more of a long-term review on it as well. Once the theater's in, we'll see the actual cleanliness of the power that's going into all of our equipment and see everything about this unit as time goes on. So I really want to thank you for joining in and, you know, watching this video, and I think it's really beneficial because I haven't seen much out there about this product. But if you are looking for incredible surge protection devices and surge elimination devices, as well as power conditioners, I really think SurgeX is your highest end. So subscribe below, and we'll see you for the next one.